Okay, so today we're going to continue the discussion of adjectivals. Adjectivals can do a great many things. So, another thing to consider would be considered past participles, which is generally going to generate passive voice. So, passive voice and the use of past participles as it concerns adjectivals. That just sounds fascinating. Well, let's look at an example so I can show you something more concrete. The car being driven by the front runner has developed engine trouble. Alright, so remember, in order to generate passive voice, you're going to have a to-be verb added to your other verb. So, let's take a look at this. The car being driven by the front runner has developed engine trouble. Alright, so pull your dependent clause out first. The dependent clause is being driven by the front runner. Alright? So your main clause, or the independent clause here, is the car, subject, has developed, verb, engine trouble. So you could just say that, the car has developed engine trouble, and that would be a sentence and you would be done. But you're actually talking about a car race. So you have added an adjectival clause that is in the passive voice, being driven by the front runner, in order to specify. Alright, so inside your sentence here, you now have to deal with being driven by the front runner. So there is another verb in here. It is being driven. This is the second verb, the verb that belongs to the dependent clause. So when you diagram, you're going to have to take care of the dependent clause in addition to the main clause. How? How do you do that? Well, always, and I'm going to say this in every video, always start by diagramming the main clause. So we'll have to erase it all. This is going to be a rather large diagram. Okay, here we go. The car has developed engine trouble, if you'll remember, is the main clause. So this is the main sentence. Alright, car has developed trouble. Alright, so there's your main clause. Car has developed trouble. The, don't forget your determiner, the car, what kind of trouble? Trouble with what in the car? In other words, engine trouble specifically, the sentence said. So, engine describes what kind of trouble in this case. Now you have to take care of the dependent clause, being driven by the front runner. So, car is the subject of the second clause as well. So you're going to have to drop, like this, off of car. The car being driven. So you're dropping down. Being driven. Let's get your past participle onto the sentence. And then there was a prepositional phrase, by the front runner. By, front runner, that's hyphenated, front runner, so that's all in one line. And then the determiner, the. The car being driven by the front runner has developed engine trouble. Alright, so remember, in these kinds of sentences, there's going to be a single subject, and the past participle is just going to drop off of it, because this is the word that this belongs to. It's like you have two verbs, verb 1 and verb 2. Alright, let's look at another example. This is where you can have some participles that can be moved. In this case, the participle starts the sentence. Carrying heavy packs on their backs The hikers were exhausted when they reached the summit of Black Butte. I'm not actually going to write all that out. We have everything we need. Well, okay, fine. I'll put on the summit and then I'll stop. When they reached the summit of Black Butte. Alright. So we got a couple of things happening in this sentence. This makes it a great one to diagram. Alright, so that opening clause there, that dependent clause, is another participle. It's movable, but this is where it is. It's at the beginning. Carrying heavy packs on their backs. Who? Who was? The hikers. You know, it modifies hikers. The hikers were carrying heavy packs on their back. Alright, but they were also exhausted. So there's a dependent clause to handle this load of information. The hikers, main clause, hikers were exhausted, adjective, when, oh look, it's another clause. You have an adverbial clause that explains when. This is adverbial. When they reached the summit of Black Butte. Alright, but this one's your participle up here. Carrying heavy packs on their backs. Alright. So here's the verb of the participle here. Carrying. What were they carrying? Heavy packs. Alright, so if you have to ask the word what, you've got a direct object. What were they carrying? Packs. Keep that in mind while I'm erasing, because it's going to play a role in what this diagram looks like. Alright, so you've kind of got a lot to deal with here. Always start with the main clause. Alright, the main clause is hikers were exhausted. Hikers. Okay. Were. And exhausted. There's your adjective. So the main clause is sentence pattern 2 in our textbook. Hikers were exhausted. But, participle, they're carrying heavy packs on their backs. So the carrying belongs to the hikers, because it's what the hikers were doing. You have to drop it down. Carrying, it's an ing one, so you need to wrap it around here. Carrying what? Direct object, packs. They were carrying packs. Where? Where were they carrying them? On backs. Theirs. Or there. So, adverbial prepositional phrase has to go under carrying. The hikers, don't forget your determiner, the hikers were carrying packs on their backs. That would be one sentence if you did it that way. They were exhausted. And then we still have to deal with the second dependent clause. Well, the second dependent clause probably won't fit entirely on this board. They reached, it won't fit, summit, I'm just going to put S. When they were exhausted, when they reached the summit of Black Butte. So I'm going off the board now because I would have to put the and of Black Butte over here under the word summit, which I don't have space to do. So this is throwback to our lesson on adverbials, connecting the two verbs together with a dotted line. But if you don't want to think about that right now, you can just focus on this participial phrase that we need to deal with, carrying packs on their backs. So, the participial phrase in our textbook would be sentence pattern 7 because you have a direct object in it. Hikers is a subject, verb, direct object. This is pattern 7. Alright. Let's look at one more example of something adjectivals can do. Object complement. This is tricky because you need a pedestal. I could feel my heart beating faster. Alright. I could feel my heart beating faster. Subject, I. Verb, could feel. What could you feel? Well, you felt your heart. All right? So, this would be, the my heart part would be noun phrase 2, because the I is noun phrase 1, and this is your verb. But it went on, you actually have a subject complement here for heart, because the heart is what is beating faster. This is a participle, an adjectival participle, because it is an adjective for heart. The heart is beating faster. How do you diagram that? I could feel. I could feel what? Direct object. Heart. My heart. This is now sentence pattern number 9 in our textbook, because now you have the subject complement, the adjective, that goes with the noun of phrase 2, and you have beating faster. So in order to get it on here, you're going to have to create a pedestal, okay? So this is beating faster. So you kind of need to push beating across the whole line there, being a participle, and then drop the faster under it. Alright, sentence pattern 9. So, this pedestal is what happens when you have to get a description that is taking up the adjective slot in there, when it's not a simple adjective like blue. Beating faster is clearly more complex than blue, or green, or small, or big. The pedestal pushes it up so you can get all the words onto the line for the slot where it actually belongs. Alright, like I said, in our textbook, sentence pattern 9. Alright, so that's enough of that for today.